Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Hey peeps, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Virus, and it's from the Italian company Giochi.it. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Now, Virus is a fully cooperative game, or it could be competitive with some extra modes, where you and the other players take control of people who are trying to survive in this grim world where an infection has ravaged much of the world. You're actually trying to break into a facility that may have the antidote for this virus that's turning creatures and animals into monsters, but of course, this facility is populated by those same creatures and monsters, and even horrible boss monsters as well. So you need to explore the facility, find the antidote, get to the exit with it, and get out. That, of course, is easier said than done. Let me go ahead and give you a brief overview of how the game works with a prototype copy of the game. So in the final version of the game, from what I've seen, there might actually be miniatures. So, of course, what you're going to see here is not miniatures, not the highest quality copy, but this is just to give you a taste of what the game is going to be like. I'm not going to cover all the different game modes either, but hopefully you'll get an idea of how the action system works with putting cubes into different rooms in order to activate different actions and moving around, exploring, so on and so forth. Anyways, let's take a look at that. Then we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts.
Virus is a cooperative game for up to 4 players. The goal of the game is to infiltrate a facility that is overrun with vicious monsters, grab the antidote, and escape through one of the exits. If even one player manages to escape along with the antidote, everyone wins. If all players are killed, or if you can't escape before the end of the 9th round, the game ends in defeat. There are a few different ways to play the game, including a competitive mode, a spy mode, and playing the game with traps. Those are beyond the scope of this overview, but you can find out more information on the crowdfunding pages. Also note that there are different ways to make the game more difficult by restricting time or resources. Every player gets a player mat, 10 bullets, 10 action cubes, a figure representing their character, and 8 random non-special room cards that they'll lay beneath their mat. From the room cards, lay out the starting room with 3 random, non-special, non-dead-end rooms attached. Draw one of the exit room cards randomly. That card will tell you where to put the 2 exit rooms, and the youngest player will also populate one of those rooms with a leader monster and a randomly drawn leader card that is not looked at. The young player will also populate the 3 rooms attached to the starting room with 1 plus the number of players' monsters. Monsters have different appearances and bonuses. Zombies have +1 health points, while dogs provide +1 movement, just as an example. Boss leaders have even more specific and powerful abilities. Once you have the starting setup done, you begin the game by setting a timer for 60 minutes or less and start with the youngest player taking turns. Every round has 4 phases. The first phase does not happen the first round, and that's the event phase. Draw one of the exit room cards, which also doubles on the other side as event cards, and apply its effect. The lead player may decide, if she doesn't like it, to spend an advantage and put it at the bottom of the deck and then draw another, and they can repeat this as well. Advantages are resources players can gain by flipping over room cards in their tableau and declaring it. Major advantages are even more powerful versions of this. You can also do things like getting bonus resources or changing a cube result to a positive result. Major advantages give escalated versions of all of these and others. Events do things like blocking off rooms, decreasing player resources, or increasing monster damage. After that, the second phase is the real-time phase. Players simultaneously take as many actions as they can by using their action cubes and placing them in the applicable box in the room where they want to complete the action until the timer runs out. Then every player puts their hands on their head, even if it interrupts an action they were in the middle of. One of the actions is moving. One action cube is enough to move you to an adjacent space. You can also move off the map and into an unexplored space by drawing a new room card and placing it. It's here that I'll mention wound cards, which have 2 sides. One side is blank, but the other describes the wounds you receive. Some wounds are serious wounds that some people might take, and some get dealt out face down, so you won't know what it is until the end. Another action is searching, which costs 3 action cubes and is important for finding resources. Placing a barrier requires an action cube and can consist of 0 to 3 bars placed on it. You can reinforce more bars onto it later. To move through a barrier, a creature group has to be equal or higher than the bar level, which is +2 per bar, in which case they would rip through it. You may also place a breach for 1 cube, which is literally an opening through a wall. Place it over a wall segment and move through it to the next room. You can activate a door for 1 cube by placing an open door or a closed door represented by bars in an open passageway. Doors influence creature behavior, blocking line of sight from them, in which case they will have to resort to scent and noise. If you have explosives, you can place up to 3 of them in the room for 1 action cube. They activate after you leave the room, and if another creature or character walks in, they explode and deal damage equal to the number of explosives. Characters must take wounds first, then creatures, then leaders if there are any left. Most creatures have 2 or 1 hit point and then die, but leaders are much stronger. Special rooms can be activated for 1 cube. The first aid room can make a deep wound into a regular wound. The ammo room will net you 3 bullets. The net room gives you 2 more room cards to spend. For 1 action, players can add a clue to a shared clue deck or check the shared clue deck. These clue cards will point you towards the location of the antidote. Finally, for real-time phase, combat costs 1 cube. The engaged player takes cubes from their stock, either or bullets and action cubes, and rolls them onto his or her playmat. Every cube that touches a red bordered square is positive, otherwise it's negative and removed from consideration. This also happens if 2 cubes end up on the same square. 3 successes can convert to 1 damage point, or 1 success can dodge an incoming attack. Speaking of that, each enemy you don't kill or dodge attacks you automatically, and deals 1 or 2 damage, causing you to draw wounds face down. If a character dies while they're infected, they might even turn into a creature leader. Free actions include shooting adrenaline, which gives you 7 cubes, but damages you if you do it too often, using a 4-leaf token, which reduces a creature group movement by 1, and anyone in the same room can exchange items for free. Once time is up, you move on to the slow phase. The lead player will move creatures 1 to 3 rooms depending on the difficulty. Creatures move as room groups. Dogs give the group +1 movement, and if they move over +1 or +2 spots, they'll gain more movement. There is a limit to how many monsters can be in a room, however. This is where the creature's senses come into play. First they must see you, or then smell you, or then hear you within 4 spaces. If none of these apply, they just stay stationary. Next, starting with the lead player, everyone will place new creatures depending on how many rooms have players' actions cubes in them. For every 4 creatures, a leader must be placed as well. After all this, you get to the turn end phase. Any player who has a deep wound must take another wound card and put it in the normal slot of their mat. Then you gain resources. You can discard identical cards from your display in shape and in color to get resources. Either 3, 7, or 11 depending on whether you discard 2, 3, or 4 cards. Also, the rooms that you explored and searched could give you more resources. Next, you can spend those resources, and if you don't, the resources are lost anyways. For example, you can buy 1 bullet for 2 resources, or 1 adrenaline for 9 resources, and many other things. Finally, you recover. Gain back action cubes equal to your stamina, which can actually be raised by buying hearts. Clear the room of cubes. Gain back room cards up to your knowledge, and the next player becomes the leader. Keep going until you've found the antidote and retreat through an exit, trying to survive against the many creatures in the facility. There's much more to Virus, but for now, let's get to my final thoughts.
Virus is a very interesting game because it's one of those rare games that mixes a very strong theme with also very strategic elements, but at the same time, it's accessible. So you have this theme of going down to this facility and you're trying desperately to survive against the hordes of monsters that are coming out and all of these different things, but at the same time, everything feels intuitive. So when you're using the whole action point, action cube system, you're like, okay, I'm taking an action here, I put a cube there, and then that also dictates how the monsters monsters are going to be placed down to the rooms later on. So everything sort of links together and makes a kind of sense. Also, it's the combat system is pretty interesting as well, how you roll the cubes out onto your own personal player mat in order to see how many count as hits in the square grid. It's very interesting. Also, the fact that you have exploration in this game, so you're flipping over tiles, connecting them, and then going from room to room, not really sure what's around the corner, hoping that you find some of the beneficial special rooms that will help you out, give you ammo, give you health, things like that. You're always on the lookout for really nasty monsters and groups of monsters walking through. The more actions that you take, the more action cubes that you put out, the more monsters are going to be, you're going to gain their attention, more of them, and it's going to make things a lot more difficult for you, and you have to find the room that has the antidote. And that's also an interesting aspect of the game too, because you have to get these clues, which is going to take more time and actions on your part, but it's really the only way that you're going to be able to find this antidote, by building up those clue cards, which is another interesting way that they marry the theme into the mechanisms of the game. So lots of stuff going on here, but at the same time, while you have all these mechanical elements that are strategic, it's also pretty easy to get into as well, especially when you take into account the theme. It's always easier to learn a game and to get play a game and to make it feel like it just flies by when the theme is so tightly wound together with those mechanisms. So if you like the theme, if this is the type of game that interests you, it's really not like anything else that I've seen, definitely go to the official Kickstarter project page. There's going to be a link up in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section of the video. Those links will take you to the Kickstarter page. You can find out more information than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully you'll consider backing the project. That is Virus, new on Kickstarter and also on other crowdfunding sites as well.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.